Alright, I believe this is my fourth YouTube video. Fourth so far. I thought about using editing software for YouTube, but not quite there yet, so my videos are still just going to be a sort of black screen. Of course, I'm a beginner. We're going to get there. You're going to see pictures as I talk about characters, Star Wars characters again. So this video is, as you can tell by the title, about my favorite Star Wars character, the Count Dooku of Serenno, Darth Tyrannus, Sidious's apprentice. Before his untimely death, the leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, the 83-year-old Count Dooku. I love this character simply because I relate to him so much. I understand him. Obviously, I didn't go through what he went through because obviously he's a fictional character. I'm more real than him. You know, I can't have a conversation with Dooku, but he's real because I think about him. He has an effect on me. So this character Dooku this is basically just an analysis, a free thought analysis of who he is as a person, mostly his flaws and some of his strengths, because that's what makes him such a wonderful character to me, is his flaws, despite him having those strengths. So we're gonna start off with, well, firstly, the sources that I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use Labyrinth of Evil, the Revenge of the Sith novelization. What more? I'm reading Yoda Dark Rendezvous, so what I've read of that book right at the moment, I'm gonna use that. I believe it's the Republic comics or Jedi Dooku, one of those comics that I read online. I forget the name of it, but it's about him. As well as a quote from Legacy of the Jedi that kind of fits into this. Honestly, I found that on Wikipedia. The Legacy of the Jedi quote. I have not read that book yet. I have not. Maybe in the future. So I'm using these sources to sort of kind of as basically the basis of where I'm going to go with this analysis. Again, this is not scripted, definitely not. I may do scripted videos in the future. But let's start off with, he has so many flaws, where do I even start? Who Dooku is as a person, he's always been a sociopath. Even when he was young, you don't become, as Matt said, Grey Jedi 91, his YouTube channel, as Matt said, he says, you don't become a psychopath, a sociopath. You just always are one, and that is Dooku. In Legacy of the Jedi, I believe it's Lorian Nod who tells him, he's like, I know how empty your heart is, or something close to that. And even as a Jedi, he was that way. He was just a cold psychopath. Dooku is, and I love that about him. That's the part of him that I don't relate to, because obviously I'm not a sociopath. And also, Dooku, he doesn't understand emotion. He doesn't understand human emotion. That's in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. He just doesn't understand it. Other people aren't even real to him. Other people aren't real. And what more about that side of him? He views people as beneath him. That's how he views other beings in the galaxy, and he has categories where it's assets, or I forgot the other word that he uses for people who he doesn't like. Yes, he has assets, people who have some use to him. Like Grievous is an asset, or Newt Gunray. That's not in the book, but they're assets to him. As you don't need to read the book to see that. And there are people that he doesn't like, and that's basically a death wish. If Dooku doesn't like you, that's how he views people. What more about his character? A really big part of his character is his jealousy. This is in what do you call it? This is in Yoda Dark Rendezvous and Revenge of the Sith novelization. Dooku is a very much jealous-hearted person. I was reading Yoda Dark Rendezvous, I believe it was 2 nights ago, and it describes Dooku as, whenever someone mentions Anakin, jealousy just pierces his heart. He's like, everyone watches Skywalker. He doesn't like Anakin because it's sort of like he views Anakin as his replacement. And the Revenge of the Sith novelization sort of backs this up. It's like whenever someone approaches Dooku in anything, he doesn't like that. He feels jealous when anyone is better than him in anything. He can't handle not being the best in the room, as Evan said, I believe. When I watched the video, the Finalysis video of Revenge of the Sith novelization, he can't handle not being the best or number one, and so that's always affected him. He doesn't like Anakin just for that. And the Yoda Dark Rendezvous describes it as if Dooku weren't so old, he would have hated Skywalker, just a little. So that's sort of the jealousy part of him. And as humans, we do experience jealousy. I've experienced jealousy definitely toward people in the past. So I understand that that aspect of him really. What more about his character? Let's see, the next thing. A really important thing is that when he doubts himself, Kenobi and Skywalker always come up. It's a begrudging respect. It's always this is mostly in Labyrinth of Evil. It's like, he's thinking to himself. He's sitting down. He's like, dare I admit it, they are exceptional. And he says, what if they've achieved? He says, he's amazed by what they've achieved through teamwork and working together, playing off each other's strengths and weaknesses. He just thinks, like they've gotten this far working together. He doesn't really like that. It's this begrudging respect. I don't really relate to him on that part, but I understand where he's coming from. He's like, how could somebody get this far working together? That just amazes him, but he doesn't like it at the same time. And it was when he experienced the might of Anakin Skywalker at the end of Labyrinth of Evil. Anakin screams, Dooku, and then the entire place shatters, the entire structure. And Dooku is amidst the rubble. He's dusting himself off amidst the rubble, and he's like, but the novel describes him as, he was at this moment really. Now he wasn't so sure. What if it all came crashing down? What if Sidious is apprehended? What's going to happen to me? What if Sidious is apprehended and Grievous is captured? Where could the Count Dooku of Serenno retire? I could always go back to the Jedi Temple, but no, that'll never happen. He says, not when I'm this deep in the dark side. And that part of him is also in Yoda Dark Rendezvous. He tells Mitch, like, if I take you to the black water that is the dark side, I feel that you will drown, or you will become out more powerful than you should be. I love that aspect of him. He thinks I'm so deep in the dark side I can't be redeemed, and that's the story. It has to be that way. It has to, because the story was written that way. The authors made him that way. He wouldn't be. It's hard to argue. Like, would he still be Dooku if he did not have these thoughts and these beliefs? I love that. And then he has this sort of drifting away from Anakin. He has this soft spot for Kenobi. Well, not necessarily a soft spot, but he takes a liking more to Kenobi. He is in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. He tells Palpatine, he's like, he's practically my grandson, because Dooku trained Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon trained Obi-Wan. And so he's like, can we recruit him, please? He's like, can we recruit him? And Sidious is like, no, he's too indoctrinated. He's like, Skywalker, he's like, I don't basically like anything about Skywalker, his emotion, his hate. And Sidious is like, how appropriate. My apprentice feels as though it is appropriate to lecture me. Duke is like, no, I'm just observing that Skywalker sucks. And I love that part about him, that he's willing. He does what Sidious tells him to do, but he doesn't like or necessarily agree with everything that he is told to do. But he dare not disobey. And that's what he told Vengeance. He's like, you dare not. He's like, you may disagree with me, but you dare not disobey. I love that part about him. And he may hesitate to contact Sidious when something goes wrong, like in Labyrinth of Evil. He stopped. He was like, ooh. It's like, what if I don't contact my master? And then, but he ends up doing it anyway. There's always that hesitation, and even in Yoda Dark Rendezvous, Dooku, he's like he's questioning what he's doing, and like Sidious is like, a bit of conscience, my apprentice. And Dooku's like, oh no, and he just has this image of, complete obedience, but he has thoughts himself, like he doesn't really want to do everything Sidious tells him to do. He truly does not. Like in Yoda Dark Rendezvous, this man is literally trembling. Like it's in the passages, it's in the excerpts. He's trembling as he's doing things, but he puts up this smile. It really highlights that he's trembling. Another aspect of his character that I really do love is how he doesn't like the war, and how he still cares for the Jedi. He still cares about them. It's mostly in I think it's Revenge of the Sith or Labyrinth of Evil. He's like, such a shame this war is, but it is necessary for the greater good. That he doesn't like the conflict. He doesn't really want it, but he views it as necessary for the future, the Clone War. And this next part is in the comics, the Legends comics. I think it's either Jedi Dooku or the Republic comics. But Dooku's like, he sees the Jedi, and he's like, he tells the Separatist army, he's like, keep the Jedi but kill the clones. He really does care about them. He's like, all the Jedi are my brothers and sisters. And that is such a great part of him. He doesn't kill mindlessly. He's not a bloodthirsty Sith Lord. He's not looking for someone to kill. And it's also in Dark Rendezvous where he looks at Zhang Li's hand, if that's the Jedi, if that's right. He keeps on looking at her hand, and he goes out to the balcony. He's just like, I knew her, this Jedi. He's like, she had a life, and he's just really thinking about, he's like, what is going on in my life? This man literally seen a charred, dead hand, and he just doesn't feel good with everything that he's seeing, and he's human on that level. Despite being a sociopath, he's human. There's some parts of him that cares and has remorse, and I really do enjoy that about Tyrannus Dooku. The next part of his character is I'm sort of losing my train of thought here. Oh yes, the part about him where I love how Labyrinth of Evil to a much lesser extent, but Yoda Dark Rendezvous and Revenge of the Sith novelization really do hammer down that he's feeling old. He is old. I believe it's Dark Rendezvous where it's stated, like, he looks older than he did on Geonosis, and but when Dooku feels good when he's by himself, but when he gets in front of Sidious, all that false youth goes away. He looks so old when he kneels down to Sidious. And in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, it's on the day he fights Kenobi and Skywalker, his final day. It's like, the 83 years have finally caught up to him. He's feeling every hour of his age, and he even had Force exhaustion, which is a great segue. I feel like I can go a bit more in depth on his age, but it is so impressive on a physical level how he's able to compete with Jedi much younger than him. That's going to segue into his strengths, mostly. His strengths. Well, before we get to that, there strengths and weaknesses of his power in the Force and lightsaber dueling, I would say. Okay, so he is a darn good duelist, arguably one of the best duelist in galactic history in Star Wars. Dooku is because he is his era's reigning master of Makashi, and that offers him such a great edge. It's a part of his personality. He loves to duel in provide helpful commentary as he's dueling. He utilizes dual mock against almost everybody that he duels. He tells Anakin Skywalker in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, he's like, "You're nothing but a posturing child," and then he says, what does it say? He's like, "Aren't you a little too old to be afraid of the dark, Skywalker?" And I love how when he duels Sora Bulk, he's like, what does he say to Sora Bulk in the comics? I can't remember the exact line. He's okay. Let's go. What he tells Thom, he's like, "I'm glad you kept up your skill, Thom." And then Thom says, "I sense you're tired from Geonosis." And then he slashes Thom 3 times. I think it's 2 or 3 times. And he says, he's like, "Now who is tired, Master Thom?" And then he says, "A token to that respect." Then he makes the rebel fall on him. So he gives helpful commentary. And what he did to Quinlan Voss, he's like, "You're opening with that stance?" And then I really do like that part about him. Even what he says to who was it? Skywalker in the Attack of the Clones novelization. I forgot that's also a source I'm using. The Attack of the Clones novelization. He states that you have an unusual fighting style, Skywalker. Unusual, but it's not enough to save you. And so he gradually regains his footing. So that is a part of him. And also what he does, Dooku, he is not without his mistakes, as we can see. He does make some questionable decisions in dueling, I would say, to an extent. In the Attack of the Clones novelization, described as, he's being driven back by Anakin, and Anakin cut his exit off with the Force. And he struggles a bit against Skywalker. Even when he regains his footing, he's like, Anakin, what is the description? Anakin stubbornly held his ground against the Count. He filled his vision with blue and green. I think the description was, or something like that. And even in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, it's an electric blue haze or something that Dooku's seeing as he's dueling Anakin, because he's moving so wildly fast. So Dooku, he's not the fastest, and he can be pressured under the right circumstances. It's mostly Anakin that pressures him, and obviously Yoda, he's like, "Okay, I can't win this, so I'm just gonna escape." He knew he couldn't win. That's even in Yoda Dark Rendezvous. He knew he can't defeat Yoda. So, also, he contradicts himself, Dooku. He's like, enslavement to form, defeat by the unforeseen. But he's enslaved to Makashi. That's the only form that he does. And so he was defeated by Skywalker. Anakin battered through his defenses. He describes it as a meteor strike. And so that's the dueling part of him. And it's a scene in Labyrinth of Evil, which I absolutely love. In Labyrinth of Evil, where he's watching Grievous duel the Magna Guards. He's like, 2 lightsabers is already bad, but like 3. Then he's seeing them duel. He's like, no, stop. He's like, why do you insist on doing it wrong? And then he created, the novel describes him as creating an X. He creates a Makashi X, and then he rids the guards of their staffs, and he points his blade toward Grievous. He's like, after he gets done lecturing Grievous, or scolding him rather, he's like, "Oh, helpless." And then he goes back to watching it. He's like, "Oh my goodness." Then he thinks about Ventress and Dooku. Ventress and Maul. He's like, that's my mistake. Ventress is filled with hate, and that's not great. But he also thinks about Maul. He's like, well, Maul was filled with hate, and I didn't teach him. So there's just so many parts about his character. I think I remember the line that he said in the Jedi comics when he's dueling Sora Bulk. He says, I forgot the line already. He says, anger is useful unless it is used against you. So I love that. And he's just so complex. He's not complicated to understand. He's complex if you read all the material. I would say everyone gets him right. Even TCW gets him right to an extent. TCW definitely does have him do things in line with his character, in the show. The Jedi comics, or I think the Republic comics, Jedi Dooku, that really does show his character well, and how he's a really good manipulator. I forgot to mention that he manipulated Quinlan Vos. That was really good on his part. He's not Palpatine level, but he's close enough to where he manipulated the heck out of Quinlan Vos. And, let's see. But yeah, everyone mostly gets him right. James Luceno, who wrote the books right in front of me, Sean Stewart, who wrote Yoda Dark Rendezvous, he gets him right. Whoever wrote the comics get him right. From what I've definitely read, the Attack of the Clones, it did what it could. The book did what it could, just followed the script. But the one thing that I think the author that didn't get him right the most was Matthew Stover. I don't think he did the greatest job with Dooku. James Luceno wrote him Dooku better than Matthew Stover, in my opinion, because in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, well, I would say in Labyrinth of Evil, he views Grievous as poor Grievous, pitiful creature. And then, he also says poor Gunray, pitiful creature. But in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, he's like, he's like, I want domination, but human domination. It doesn't fit him, that xenophobia thing. It doesn't fit him. He's like, oh, you vile creature. He thinks himself too grievous, and it doesn't fit him, that whole xenophobia thing. That he has an emphasis on a human Sith army. This vision, this what he foresees, his plan for the Grand Army in the future, and it just doesn't how he, because his master Yoda, he's not human. Let's see, yeah, he has Poggle, Newt Gunray. It doesn't really. It doesn't sit right with me that he's a xenophobe. And it doesn't fit right in that context, who Dooku is. And that's kind of my only really, it's not an issue with Dooku, it's mostly just like a minor thing with the writer, Matthew Stover. He did write Revenge of the Sith in a fantastic way, but it's not a perfect book. I don't think any book is perfect. Labyrinth of Evil is certainly not, but Yoda Dark Rendezvous is not. The novel literally begins with Padme, so that's interesting. But yeah, those are my thoughts at the moment on Dooku. That's why he's my favorite character. All those 10,000 reasons that I just listed. Again, this is my longest video as of late, but I'll try to keep the videos much shorter than this one. And those are my thoughts. That's my analysis. Please like and comment below if you wish. Anything helps. Have a good one.